I'm going to turn things over to Eric from Intellias, and he's going to introduce himself and take you through their presentation.
Thanks, Hans. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Miller from Intellias. I'm a manager of technical services here over at Intellias. And today we'll be partnering with Xanterra, with Paula and Kate, to talk about ways that we've improved the Infor automated user security provisioning, kind of building on top of the foundations that they've built and extending it a little further. So to go ahead and start off, a little bit about Intellias. We're headquartered in Dallas, Texas, established in 1999. We are an Infor Alliance partner and we're Cloud Suite specialized. We have various software offerings. A lot of these used to run on Lawson, but have been rebuilt for the multi-tenant cloud. So if you're a current Intellias software user, feel free to reach out to explore your options of moving the applications to the cloud. And then we also offer various consulting services, technical services, upgrades, cloud services, and application consulting. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Paula and Kate to tell us a little bit about Xanterra.
Hi, everyone. I am Kate Rogers. We are Xanterra Travel Collection. We are a park and resort management company, and we are based out of Greenwood Village, Colorado, but we run national parks. This kind of was our original core business, and we run those, as you can see here, some of the parks that we run all over the U.S. And then we also own and operate a couple of other adventure tour, cruise line, and then the Grand Canyon Railway and Hotel. So we have kind of a broad, diverse, I guess, customer base, if you will, of our users. So we have been a legacy Lawson customer. You want to actually jump to the next one? I don't think I have control. Thank you. So we were a Lawson legacy customer. So we have been with Lawson. I truthfully actually don't know. My boss actually implemented Lawson with Lawson people. So, but we still continue to this day to use payroll in Lawson. We began our Cloud Suite conversion in 2019 and thought it sounded like a fun idea to work on a huge system conversion with a multinational team during a worldwide pandemic. So we ended up going live in November of 2020. I would say that in general, we have been very successful, and we have been working very hard to take everything that we put into place as of go live and just expand upon that and make it even better, more efficient, all of that. And this is part of that journey. So we use a lot of what HRT and FSM have to offer, plus some other Infor products. So you can see here kind of a little bit of what we have laid out in terms of what we use by module. So on the HRT side, we have all of our employees in there. Again, we use Lawson for payroll still at the moment, but we can initiate actions and approval flows. On the FSM side, we have inventory, requisitioning, purchasing, all the kind of bells and whistles there. And then we have the GL, allocations, payables, assets, projects, kind of that whole gamut of items on the finance side. So since go live, and we've been kind of just shoring up the foundation of our projects, of all of our different applications. And in regard to absence management, we have been focusing on employee and manager self-service. So today, we're going to kind of talk through specifically our position provisioning and onboarding journey. And it has been a journey, but it is so much better now. So we'll go through what Infor has kind of, delivered out of the box and how we're using it for our needs, and then what we've added to it. We'll also detail out our position request process, kind of what we've done in the past and how we're moving that into the future within the system so that everything is faster and smoother. And then finally, we're going to talk about HR as a source. So I will hand it over to Paula.
Thanks, Kate. So we are going to go through our provisioning with Infor. So a quick overview is that we have leveraged since the beginning the position provisioning by assigning roles by position. I was not there, but I know a lot of work went into the process to identify all of those security roles that should be hooked to positions. And unfortunately, that's kind of where it landed and fell flat, wasn't maintained super well, and kind of became a big mess. So part of our cleanup and trying to shore up that foundation has been a big effort to improve that. Our current state for provisioning, therefore, is we kind of have this position request process, which we'll show you later, but because it didn't really do what we needed it to do because we weren't really following through, it kind of required this whole manual by employee submission of ServiceNow onboarding tickets. And so if you can imagine, over this later too, we have a lot of seasonality in our business, and for every employee that comes in to have to manually submit what access they need is a big lift. But basically, process is that the ticket gets submitted, the hiring manager will tell the basic permissions. Those permission approvals have to go out to someone in supply chain, finance, and HR to then get approved or denied, which then has to go back and manually be handled by IT. So in the future, my goal was to really, work with the team to figure out how to drive all of that from Infor's provisioning, because it really does give us that ability, which is super cool. And then as I was thinking through a lot of things, I said, well, Eric, can't we just put this on steroids and make it so much better? Because there are a lot of other things that we could tie to it, actor org security and in baskets. And then after we did all of that and we were like almost to the finish line, we talked to Kate and said, Kate, can't we do all of this cool stuff in finance? Because I realized that as I was like trying to replace this whole process and put it into Cloud Suite, I'm like, well, I'm not solving the issue and I'm almost making it worse, because now the manager is going to be like, well, why do I have to just do this piece for Kate's stuff, right? And so we brought Kate in and supply chain in, and we are now almost over the finish line to push this out and have it be even more of a great process. But that's the goal, and I'll pass it off to Eric to kind of walk through what we have and where we're going.
Thanks, Paula. Yeah, so kind of where I wanted to start talking about this is talking about the delivered capabilities that Infor offers. So as I'm sure we're all familiar with, within GHR, there's the user provisioning configuration. This allows us to control various, actions and things like that on what happens when people are hired, rehired, imported, things like that within the application. So as you can see, Xanterra is leveraging the delivered user provisioning configuration, and they're also using the position role rules. The position role rules basically, when someone is hired or moved into a position, the roles assigned to that position are automatically assigned to that user. So it gives us a way to, associate these security roles with a position to give us that framework for when we bring people onto the organization. So this is a really cool feature that, I have always loved. I've always, pushed our clients to use. And, when working with Paula, we decided, can't we take this a little bit further, right? Right now we have the ability to associate the positions with roles, but what if we were able to associate our positions with other attributes? So that's kind of what we, worked on building out and wanted to put in place to, have that full, provisioning process maintained automatically by the system without having to have, manual user intervention. So some of the areas where we found that it fell short is automatically creating the PFI user profile. Many times users will go to, or clients will go to, associate a user with an in-basket, but they don't have the PFI user profile created, right? So that was one of those things that was very easy to, automate the creation of the PFI user profile when a user is hired. The next piece is actor organization unit records. So actor org unit records are used to drive typically HR generalist security. Xanterra, I believe, uses it a little bit more in depth, but this is another key part of that user setup as users are, brought on to the organization. The other thing is in baskets. So being able to say, okay, typically users within our HR generalist position need to automatically have an in-basket assigned. So we built out functionality for them to associate in-baskets with positions that would automatically be created and removed as people move throughout the organization. On the finance side, as we talked to Kate and tried to discover, where we could help on their end, we realized that it would be super helpful to create the FSM actor context records. So the FSM actor context records are, our very basic ones, right? There's the finance enterprise group, the enterprise group, and the HR organization. But Xanterra also leverages the security groups within FSM. In order to actually be associated with a security group, you need an actor context record within FSM. So building in the functionality to capture this information on the creation and updating of a position, and then applying that to our users as they move in and out of those positions was a huge win in ensuring that, within FSM, users are seeing what they should see and only what they should see. The final two pieces are creating our requester record and associating our requester with requesting locations. This is another very manual, time-consuming process that we wanted to, tie to a position, is typically users within the same position would have the same requesting locations. So we built out functionality to be able to do that. So by leveraging configuration console and IPA, we were able to build ways to store this information on the position and automatically provision these items upon hire, rehire, transfer, and promote actions, as well as deprovision upon termination action. So I just, wanted to include some sample screenshots of, what this looks like within the system. So here are actor organization unit records that are associated with positions. We're able to, kind of revamp that user provisioning configuration area within Infor to give a lot more context on the different attributes associated with our positions. So here we can see for these two positions what org units that they're associated with and what actor level or access levels they have. The next piece is the in-baskets. So for our in-baskets, we were able to create a user business class to create records that associate our positions with a in-basket task. This is then leveraged upon hire, rehire, transfer, and promote actions to create these in-basket records, and upon termination to delete these records. The next piece is our FSM actor context records. So there's three main actor context records that really change per position for Xanterra. These were the actor context accounting entity, company, and project. And like I had said, these drive the security groups within FSM. So by leveraging different exit rules on our personnel actions, as well as IPA flows and things like that, we were able to, build out that functionality to automatically provision, kind of what we just talked about, as well as deprovision other items to ensure that the separating team members leave with a clean profile and are set up for success when we go to rehire them. So I'll throw it over to Paula.
I think I'm going to take this one actually.
Oh, okay.
So, oh, I thought, sorry. Okay. Sorry. So this was kind of this is our existing kind of form, right, that we have for our position requests, right? So we have our position titles and our org units and all of that, and it gives us kind of some of that basic information. And we had been, as Paula mentioned, leveraging kind of a smart sheet form that existed outside of the Infor application, because what ultimately happens is we have kind of this bridge, if you will, between what, like, the general idea behind the position and what the actual individual roles are, right? So if we know someone needs to be a staff accountant, that's great, right? But we need to also add in the specific like Infor roles, right, that are associated to this. So we always start this process here to kind of give us the background of the position and the general needs. Anything to add to that, Paula?
Nope, you got it.
Okay. To make sure.
So when working with Xanterra, having that position request process occur outside of the Infor application was something that was, difficult to handle and difficult to maintain, right? Within their smart sheet form, for example, there were lots of drop downs and select lists. Well, those get out of date really quickly and require manual maintenance to ensure that, all of our data points that exist within Infor also exist on our smart sheet. So once seeing kind of what their current process looked like, it looked exactly like the process within Infor. So we kind of revamped the request new position and request position update actions within Infor to fit Xanterra's needs and give them the ability to, perform those requests in the system, as well as handle a lot of that, provisioning activity that would happen outside of the system. So kind of our goal with this entire, process was to, take all of those different, position requests and provisioning actions and bring them into the Infor application so that their team could leverage the, Infor system as much as possible. So here's what, the revamped position request form looks like. This is just the, kind of meat of it, our provisioning section, where you can see how we, select all these different attributes and things like that on a position that will ultimately drive the provisioning down the line. Our request position update form, looks very similar, same idea as well. So in tandem with these updates, we also added in some additional functionality. For example, Xanterra uses Lawson for payroll. So everything needs to flow down to Lawson via the employee and work assignment exports to get to payroll to actually be paid. So one of those pain points in their process was when new positions were created, often it was forgotten to create the cross-reference record to map the Infor position to the Lawson position. So another cool part of this process is that we were able to automatically create that cross-reference record to ensure that there's no issues when people are brought into this position and ultimately interface down to Lawson. We're also able to dynamically default other values on the position based on different attributes selected. For example, one of them was, everyone in this position family will always be in this payment schedule. Everyone in this position family will be in this other payment schedule. So we're able to do kind of that smart dynamic defaulting on our form to ensure that, everything is correct as we create our positions and eliminate, the possibility of, user error. And finally, these requests are then, similar to their current state process, routed to their security approvers to ensure that the attributes that are tied to these positions are accurate. So before we get into a quick demo of, what this looks like within the application, I wanted to show, a quick diagram to try and visualize, what is this all made of, right? So in the middle, we have our position, and we can see all of the different kind of data points that are associated with our position that are then used to drive user provisioning. So this includes our in-basket, org units, actor context records, our PFI user profile, our requester record, and our requesting locations. So with that, we're going to go ahead and log into the system and take a quick look at what this looks like. So this is our request new position form. As some of you, I'm sure, are probably familiar with, we have all of our typical position data points available for entering as the initiator. So things like our position name, job, org unit, manager, things like that. And down here at the bottom is kind of what we saw earlier of all of the different, provisioning options that we have when creating a new position. One of the cool things that I think we did was in Xanterra's current state process, they have a lot of these checkboxes to say, oh, this is the type of access that a user should get, right? As we thought about it, presenting, our initiators, who are typically going to be managers, the ability to select, Infor security roles on this form may be a bit daunting. And, those initiators may not know exactly which role needs to be used. For example, there's, delivered roles, customized roles, roles of different access level. So, to make it as easy as possible and give a, seamless user experience to our initiators, we just created simple checkboxes for them to say, this is the type of access that users in this position will need. When we get to the approval side, specifically to our security approvers, we take a look in here, we can see that the type of access is listed, but then our security approvers have the ability to kind of do the actual mapping themselves of, oh, well, they said recruiter. Well, do they mean a recruiter ST role, a recruiter admin ST role, or an XLH recruiter role, one of the custom ones that they have in place? So giving, the ability for our initiators to, give us some basic, security provisioning information on the position while allowing our, security experts to really make that mapping, I think was one of those, really cool things that we did to help improve the user experience of this process. When users are hired into these positions, we can take a look at, what kind of happens behind the scenes to actually create those records. So I've just staged a sample hire here. We're going to give Hans Mueller a job. I'm sure he doesn't have enough to do. So we'll go ahead and just submit our hire action. I believe everything is populated. Yep. And see, all the data points that are created. We'll give that a second to complete, but the first data point that will be created will be our actor org unit record. And so we can see here, once that action request of hire completed, Hans Mueller was automatically assigned the actor org unit record associated with that position, as well as the access level that we denoted on that position. The next thing on the HR side that is automatically created is our PFI user profile. So if we come in here and we just go search for Hans, we can see that, okay, the PFI user profile was automatically generated at time of hire, and the 2 tasks that we had associated with that position have been assigned. So he can be a part of the HR administrator and the HR generalist in Basket. So those are kind of some of the main HR items. For provisioning these HR items, because our hire and personnel actions, take place in HR, we're able to leverage exit rules to go ahead and automatically, once that action request completes, in real time, create all of these records. One of the limitations within Infor is that our config console actions cannot cross over data areas, right? So for our items within FSM, these need to be created in another fashion. So what we were able to do was build IPA flows that go ahead and automatically create the data on the FSM side that is associated with that position. So I kicked that off. We'll see if it completed real quick. We can see that Hans's actor context records were created on the FSM side for our finance enterprise group and our HR organization. We'll probably see those other items flow through in a bit. The flow takes a bit to run. And then the final piece is our requester record. So we can see if his requester record has been created already. It looks like it has not. So just in the, being conscious of time, I'll pull up one that we just submitted before this. So I hired Jerry Springer. So Jerry's requester record was automatically created. Things like our company that he's associated with and his default requesting location were defined by that process, as well as the requesting locations that Jerry needed to be able to request for have also automatically been generated, right? So what this does is take out a lot of that, manual provisioning process and allow the system to, do as much of the provisioning automatically as it possibly can to free up others to, spend their time doing higher value items within the organization. Back up. So next, I'll turn it over to Paula to kind of talk about how the provisioning process outside of Infor works.
Thanks, Eric. So yes, we, as part of this position project, it seemed to all kick off at the same time, or all kind of be in this crazy spider web all together playing nicely in the sandbox. Sometimes it didn't play nicely, but for the most part it did. We started this HR as a source project where we really wanted the Infor HR data to drive information in Okta. And then from there, right, we control lots of things with Okta. So any Okta provisioned items, where can we pull in attributes out of GHR to actually control that? So we kicked that off. We've kind of been running side by side in parallel to do this, and we went live in December, and we're driving a lot of things, but mainly in this position request process, we'll also be capturing things like, do they need an Active Directory account? And instead of, again, doing it by person, we're able to do it by position, and it's running very smoothly, and it will even run smoother when we're not using the Smartsheet, but we're using this process. But so the idea really is that it runs from Infor HR Talent down to Okta and then down to all of the third-party applications. It will be the never-ending project. But to show you kind of why this is really, really important for our company, and especially, is because of our seasonality. So if you look, you can see that our hire count goes up, you know, where we might have 2,500 employees on a normal day, we, you know, go up to, you know, thousands and thousands over the summer because of our seasonality. And it's very, very heavy lift on our IT departments, even though we have IT teams also in the field. They have, you know, might have 100, 200, 300 people showing up on one day. And it's because of the type of position it is and the type of employees we have. It's hard to know whether they're going to come today or tomorrow or the next week. It's very fluid sometimes out in the field. So just to kind of give an idea of the, you know, savings and, you know, how much time this has taken, you know, we kind of put together some stats and figured if it was 10 minutes per employee and we have 2,500 employees start each year between April and August, you know, that's 416 hours of time spent provisioning. And I'm sure it's honestly more because we, you know, have now added in so much since we pulled these stats. So it really is about not even just saving the time, but also when we talk about deprovisioning, we miss a lot of these. So one of the things is that we had, if we have 588 deprovisioning requests, but we had a lot more people leave the organization or transfer. We also have a very high transfer rate where somebody might complete a season at Yellowstone and then Yellowstone is closing down to their, you know, slower period in the winter, and so they go to Oasis for the winter and then they'll go back to Yellowstone. And how do we deprovision them out of one property and bring them up in another property within days, weeks, you know, without, you know, one terminating their access so that they can't get into something, but kind of really just making sure they can't get into the old property when they should just be seeing the new property. So, Kate, you're up.
Yep. And from the FSM side, right, we don't necessarily have all of those HR users converting over into FSM, right? So we probably have about 500 users a year that have varying FSM related needs that we need to provision. For the most part, lots and lots of requesters. So with that comes, of course, any sort of FSM access means actor contact access. And for our organization specifically, as really relating to the parks that we run, those parks are individual operations, right? And so crossing over between them, like we don't want someone who's at Yellowstone and then moves to the South Rim to still have access to Yellowstone. We keep those kind of very bottled up for many reasons, including our audit, obviously. So from an audit perspective, just being able to make sure that as we go through this process, that especially on the deprovisioning side, especially as it relates to transfers, right, that people are getting that actor context, those records updated, right? Because just because you were a requester maybe at Yellowstone, if you transfer to the Oasis for, say, the winter, you may not be a requester anymore, so you may not need FSM access. So we need to make sure that all of that gets removed. So that helps us significantly there. So that's part of the benefit. Also, we have that kind of no more clunky duplicate data entry that goes on. We have real-time data. So instead of having to go through Smartsheet by person, every person who's hired into that position will end up with the same exact access. That again will make for a much more efficient process with way less opportunity for error. We'll also have standardization across the organization, right? So we do have a very detailed position table, right? So we have chefs, say, and we have chefs at a property and a location within a property. That's a different position than a chef at a different property. So we can, with that level of detail, make sure that we are very detailed in our provisioning process. So those are kind of the main things there. Anything to add, Eric?
No, I think you touched on it well. It's, automatic, accurate, and gives us that insurance that everything is done correctly in a timely manner. So with that, wanted to see if anyone has any questions. Feel free to throw it in the chat. I believe I can access the Q&A.
So I can help too, Eric, because there were some questions that came in throughout. Let me just scroll back here. Where am I? All right. Okay. Does this solution require, and you may have answered this along the way, but because this came in early, but does this solution require the full GHR suite? The way you're using it, I believe it does, but.
Yeah, with the way that we currently have it set up and are driving it, by position, it requires at least, the core GHR module, right? Employees, positions within the application to be able to kind of drive this provisioning.
How does the automated provisioning handle timing issues? Does it only provision them on their hire date and no earlier?
It provisions them on the effective date that the hire action or personnel action was performed. So Xanterra, Paula, do you guys use future dated effective dates for hires and things like that?
They are brought in effective the day that they come over from iCIMS. That's a different project we're working on right now as far as when am I a candidate and when am I an employee. But we actually have something in Okta where they get blocked out of other things until they're able to log in. And when they log into GHR, they're only going to see their transition management information until their hire date.
Okay. This question again came in a little bit on the early side, so you may have covered some of it, but what happens when an employee is terminated? I assume they are inactivated, but what about their pending transactions in, say, FSM?
So within FSM, the main things that we do is remove the security group access and then inactivate their requester. So it should not impact any kind of pending transactions that are in process within the FSM side.
Does this mean that once the new employee is onboarded in HCM, it will flow through to FSM based on their security roles? Sounds like yes.
Yep.
Okay. We covered that one. Okay, can you show a finished work unit so we can see the timing? How long does it take roughly?
The timing to complete the hire or the timing to
do all the provisioning, I think, from end to end, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, that usually takes around 2 minutes or so. Depending on, we have, basically how we have this running is via replication sets that spit out, which work assignments have changed and which positions have changed in order to, know, okay, for these users, they changed position, right? Because their position on their work assignment changed. So we need to go re-provision them. And then if our positions are updated, we need to make those changes flow down to everyone sitting within those positions. So I would say it takes about 5 or 10 seconds per employee. So the time a work unit takes to complete really varies on how much movement has happened since the last replication set has run.
Okay. What was the upfront investment to achieve this?
Paula, Kate, I'll
Oh
let
man,
you answer that one.
I'd have to look back at the hours. I think that we would have to go back and quantify it because we use Intellias for so many things that I have to pull it out. I don't know that we have it specifically, but we could probably pull a guesstimate together. I don't feel like this specifically has been a heavy development. It's, you know, it's really just been, Eric, can we do this? And he pretty much goes away and comes back within an hour and says, here it is. So I don't think it's, you know, not to kind of deflate Eric's value or anything like that. I think he definitely just is in that mindset that he can take the idea and run with it. And it's honestly something we've talked about for many years doing, and I'm happy that it finally came to fruition.
And like any project that either Paula or I are involved with, we just start asking more questions and asking for more stuff.
And it just grows and grows.
Yeah, I think where this project started and where it is now is probably not necessarily, like where it is now is probably not necessarily where we thought it was going to be on the roadmap, but we are like, it's, I think even better, like way better, right, than we even kind of originally imagined. So,
and we're kind of drawing the line right now so that we can go live with this this next month, because we have kind of phase 2 ideas already. We're adding, you know, a similar functionality with jobs so that if we do need a new job, can we have that come into the process? You know, how can we kind of inflate that? And again, as we add more things to that HR as a source project, I keep going back and saying, okay, Eric, can we do this? You recently added something for Opera Access, right? And where can we determine what attributes we need and at what point we need them? Do we put them on the org unit? Do we put them on a, you know, job family? Do we put them on the position? Where do we put them? And then how do we collect that information and collect it by this same automated approval that's within the system so that, you know, it's all happening in the right order? Because what happens today is somebody just says, oh, well, I need a position, and they forget about the smart sheet. They forget about all of these manual steps that we have to do right now behind the scenes, and they just go create the position. And then all of a sudden somebody's hired into that position and they don't have the access they need. Or worst case, they're transferred into that position and they lose access that they need. You know, all of a sudden somebody's saying, why did they need an email yesterday and they don't need an email today? Well, it's because somebody went and created a position and didn't tell me, right? So this is going to really force everything to be done in the right order, so that we can make sure that when employees are starting or transferring, that their experience is a happy one because they can do their job when they get there. So,
there were multiple questions about, are you able to assign non-landmark roles, for example, Burst, XM, MSCM, Infor reporting, other things?
I would love to take this.
yes. Example of what we just said.
This is big for the finance world for sure, because we have IDM. We utilize IDM and we utilize Burst, but we on the finance side specifically use BIFSM a lot. And again, just like we lock down our security in FSM, we lock it down in those areas as well. So yes, we have been able to add that functionality into this process so that we can, again, automatically provision users into like IDM access with the right company access as well. So yes, totally. And it's super exciting. One of my favorite parts, clearly.
Yes, there's a cool way to kind of trick the system and give it the context of those, you know, IFS roles within Landmark, and allow you to associate those with these position roles. So that was a really cool thing to learn, and super helpful, because that's the final piece, right? You know, when we first tackled this, that was the one thing in the back of my mind that was like, okay, well, that's still going to need to be a manual step. But by doing some digging and, playing with different stuff, we were able to figure out a way to get those in Landmark. So Landmark has the context of them and associate them with positions.
There was a question in the Q&A about what value does Xanterra use for actor? What value are you using for actor?
I threw an answer in there.
Okay.
We're using EEID going forward. Prior to go live or shortly after even go live, they used like the PNOL and KA Rogers. I love mine because I have PNOL and my EEID, and then the test systems get confused and I never know what I'm logging in as. But going forward, we use EEID, which is definitely I put the thumbs up for that, as it never changes or shouldn't.
Okay. There's a follow-up on the other IFS roles outside of Landmark. Technically, how are you assigning these? Are you doing it in IFS?
The assignment occurs within Landmark. So basically what we did was created a role with the exact same name is the IFS role. Within Landmark, we don't associate any security classes with it or anything like that. That adds a logical ID to the security role within IFS. So we associate it with the position, a user is assigned it in Landmark. The sync security user master bod pushes that data up to IFS, and then that role is assigned in IFS. So the role exists in Landmark. It doesn't functionally do anything other than tell IFS, hey, assign this role to this user.
Excellent. Okay. I think you covered this. When an employee is terminated and inactive, the process also removes any security roles assigned to them. The question was a little bit more technical. If you're triggering the sync security user master bod, if the actor is not the employee ID, how would you get around that?
I don't know of a good programmatic way to do that. I would say for doing something like this, having the employee ID as actor, for actor as employee ID flag selected on the user provisioning configuration is kind of a prerequisite to, trying to, follow the same things that we've done here.
Were there any specific Infor courses or any trainings that you all took to assist with building this out?
Me personally, no. Paula, Kate.
Well, I think it's years and years of experience that help me at least come up with the ideas. I feel like, I've taken a lot of courses. I was Infor, I guess if you're Infor certified once, or you always Infor certified. I was Infor certified at one point. I was actually one of the beta people to take one of the Infor certifications, but I've been consultant and client, through both roles a couple times. And for me, it always stemmed from asking the question and somebody usually telling me that it couldn't be done. And then I kind of dug in and figured it out. And then I found Eric and his team, and they kind of fed into that idea of, well, what could we do? And I always like to think outside of the box and use Infor for things, because they give us the base of it, right? It doesn't mean that you can only use it for what they give us. So they've given us that functionality to take it farther. So, it's really good to find people that will help support that, and Intellias does that. The user groups are a great, point too, to bring ideas and ask other customers how they've done it and how they've accomplished things. I think you know, it's all about learning as you go. There's not like a one trick course you can take, because you know, the courses can kind of only cover a general point, right? And an example of a specific use case. They can't go through everybody's use case. And for us, we're very, you know, specific in our seasonality and our types of, you know, companies we run. And, you know, as much as we like to have consistent processes and we all strive to have a company policy or process, you know, when Yellowstone says they have to have something special, they usually get it.
Yeah.
There's a question about, I don't know if you use MSCM, but there was a question about whether or not you could automate this and extend it out to MSCM profiles and assign printers and locations as part of that provisioning process. Anybody know?
I'm not
We don't
as
use
familiar.
MSCM.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not as familiar with MSCM, so I'm not sure what the capabilities would be there.
Okay. There's just some comments that Mark Phillips, thanks Mark, has been dropping into the Q&A panel. Peace Health has done something similar, and he closed with, you know, would love to partner with Xanterra and others to share approaches and improvements to these complex solutions. So maybe there's an opportunity there. I think that wraps question. Go
Mark,
ahead.
Mark, I'm gonna reach out to you, because I think maybe we could talk about something like this on our multi-tenant HR payroll call, which is a more customer, you know, specific, and maybe collaborate on a presentation for that. So I'll reach out.
All right, I think we're past the top of the hour, and I think we covered at least most of the questions in the chat. If I missed anybody, I do apologize. If there's anything, there was one other question that just came in about, have you always had employee ID as the actor, or did you transition to it?
We transitioned to it.
And were there any challenges around doing that transition?
Yes.
Is that a loaded question?
I think there were, and if I can get that person, I'll find that question and connect, because I could connect you with our IT person that would probably specifically be able to talk about the process that we went through to make that change.
Barbie, I see your hand up, so I took you off mute. There, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Hans, I just wanted to ask this group if they're using functional roles yet. Yes.
We have not started using that, but I did see it. I think Eric actually showed it to us. Eric or Rob did, and recently, and that'll probably be in one of our future phases of this, and how to kind of collaborate and condense certain roles and make the process even happier.
Yeah, it's a super cool function. It allows you to create like a group of roles into what they're calling a functional role. So let's say I have something called employee, and here's all the systems that have the roles for an employee. They all go into this functional role. And then on the landmark side, as long as you call the role the same thing as the functional role, it'll treat it as though it's just a role to landmark. But when it hits the IFS side from the BOD process, it'll assign all the roles to that user from the functional role. So it's a really nice way to not have to have all of the other systems roles in landmark, but just to have the functional role now in landmark. And then all the other roles can be respectively in their own areas. So just something maybe to think about as folks are utilizing the system. And I was super excited to hear you guys use our user provisioning. and to see you leverage it even further.
Oh yeah, the idea is great. It's just always like I want it on steroids. I just can't help myself. It's a disease.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Hans. That's all I want to say.
Sure. Thanks, Barbie. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you taking the time. Paula, Kate, Eric, excellent presentation. I always love to have customers come on and present. I always think that resonates very well with this group. So if anybody's interested in presenting in the future on a similar solution or something else that you're doing, innovating within your organization, we're happy to have you on. So, and we'll help you, get situated, get the presentation together and all of that. So please just reach out. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.